Maple Creek Estates was known for its picturesque homes and well-maintained landscapes. I had purchased my corner lot 3 years ago, drawn to the spacious front yard with its mature oak trees that provided dappled shade during summer afternoons. The previous owners had installed a subtle but effective drainage system that kept the lawn lush and green even during the rainiest seasons. It was my pride and joy, the result of countless weekends spent mowing, seeding, and caring for every inch of that green expanse. That Thursday afternoon, I was working from home, my laptop balanced on my knees as I typed up quarterly reports. A movement outside my bay window caught my attention. I glanced up, expecting to see the neighborhood children cutting across my lawn on their way home from school. Instead, I saw 3 adults I did not recognize setting up folding tables on my front lawn. They moved with purpose, as if they had every right to be there. I set my laptop aside and moved to the window, confusion turning to disbelief as I watched a woman with a blonde bob directing the setup operations like a general commanding troops. She gestured emphatically, pointing to specific spots where tables should be placed, her voice carrying across the lawn though I could not make out her words. More people arrived, unloading chairs from the back of an SUV. I hurried outside, not bothering with shoes, the grass cool beneath my bare feet. As I approached, the woman turned toward me, her face arranged in a practiced smile that did not reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral despite my growing irritation. "Oh, hello there," she replied, her tone artificially bright. "I am Karen Mitchell, head of the Neighborhood Social Committee. We are setting up for our monthly potluck. You must be new here." "I have lived here for 3 years," I said, my confusion mounting, "and this is my front lawn." Karen laughed, the sound like glass breaking. "Oh, we always use this space for community events. It has the best shade and plenty of room. The previous owners never minded." She turned away, dismissing me as she called out instructions to someone arranging a punch bowl. "I never gave permission for this," I said, my voice stronger now. "This is private property. You need to move your event elsewhere." Karen's smile tightened, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Listen, we have been planning this for weeks. Everyone is already on their way. It is just for a few hours. Do not be difficult." I felt heat rising to my face as more people arrived, some carrying covered dishes, others with folding chairs slung under their arms. Karen raised her voice, addressing me as if I were a petulant child. "This is about community," she announced loudly, drawing the attention of several arriving guests. "Some people understand the importance of neighborhood togetherness. Others apparently prefer selfishness." Several people looked my way, their expressions ranging from curiosity to judgment. I stood there in my bare feet, suddenly aware of my wrinkled work-from-home clothes and disheveled appearance. Karen, by contrast, looked immaculate in her cream-colored pantsuit and pearl earrings. "This is still my property," I insisted, but my voice had lost its conviction. More guests were arriving by the minute, and the prospect of forcing dozens of people to relocate their gathering seemed increasingly daunting. "Why not join us?" Karen suggested with manufactured sweetness. "Since you are so concerned about your precious lawn." The mockery in her tone was subtle but unmistakable. I retreated to my house, humiliation burning in my chest as laughter and conversation rose from my front yard. Through the window, I watched as Karen held court, accepting compliments on her organizing skills, nodding graciously as guests admired the perfect venue she had selected. My lawn, my property, my space, invaded and colonized without a moment of genuine consideration. For the next 3 hours, I sat in simmering silence, documenting the trespass with my phone camera, formulating and discarding various approaches to the situation. When the last guest finally departed and Karen supervised the cleanup with the same commanding efficiency she had displayed during setup, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: this would not happen again, not without consequences. As I reviewed the photos and videos I had taken of the unauthorized potluck, memories of previous encounters with Karen Mitchell flooded back. Our first meeting had been shortly after I moved in. She had appeared at my door with a basket of muffins and a neighborhood welcome packet so thick it resembled a small phone book. The gesture seemed friendly enough until she launched into a detailed explanation of the unwritten rules of Maple Creek Estates. Your mailbox should be painted forest green, not black, she had informed me, gesturing toward my newly installed mailbox. And while we understand you are just settling in, lawn maintenance is expected weekly. We have standards here. At the time, I had nodded politely, accepting the muffins and thinking her behavior was simply an overzealous welcome. I had been wrong. That initial visit established a pattern that would repeat itself with increasing frequency. Karen appointed herself the unofficial arbiter of neighborhood propriety, and my corner lot seemed to attract her particular attention. There was the time she borrowed my garden hose without asking, returning it kinked and muddy 2 weeks later. Then came the incident with her poodle, Precious, who regularly left deposits on my lawn that Karen conveniently failed to notice. When I finally mentioned it, she had looked at me with wide-eyed innocence. "Are you sure it is Precious? So many dogs look similar." I pulled up county property records on my computer screen, printing out the plat maps that clearly showed my property lines extending all the way to the sidewalk. The front lawn where Karen had hosted her potluck was unquestionably mine. I had known this, of course, but having the official documentation in hand provided a strange comfort. A deeper dive into neighborhood social media revealed something that made my stomach tighten with anger. Karen had been planning the potluck for weeks, posting updates in the neighborhood group about our community gathering on the corner green space. No mention of seeking permission. No acknowledgement that the green space was actually private property. Just the entitled assumption that my lawn was a public venue at her disposal. The photos she had shared showed previous gatherings at other locations, the actual community center, the small park 3 blocks over, even her own backyard. But apparently, those venues no longer met her standards. She needed my shaded, level lawn for her perfect event. My home meant everything to me. I had saved for years to afford it, working double shifts and weekends, cutting expenses wherever possible. This house represented not just a financial investment, but an emotional one. The corner lot with its magnificent oaks had sealed the deal when I first viewed the property. This is where I will build my life, I had thought. Now Karen had casually appropriated it as if my ownership meant nothing. I scrolled through more neighborhood social media posts, finding a pattern of Karen's behavior toward others. She had complained about the Johnsons' holiday decorations being excessive and tacky. She had started a petition against the Alvarez family's basketball hoop, claiming it reduced property values. She had even gotten the HOA to fine elderly Mr. Peterson for leaving his garbage invisible from the street the day after he returned from hip surgery. What struck me most was how Karen had systematically identified and exploited my non-confrontational nature. Each small boundary violation had tested my response, and each time I had retreated, choosing peace over conflict. The potluck was simply the culmination of this pattern, the final, blatant overstepping that could no longer be ignored. In one particularly galling post from the previous evening, Karen had shared photos of the potluck. "Another successful community gathering," she had written. "Thanks to everyone who participated in making our neighborhood the friendliest in the county." The comments section overflowed with praise for her organizational skills and community spirit. Not one person questioned her right to use my property. I closed my laptop, a strange calm settling over me. This was not just about a single unauthorized event. It was about repeated boundary violations, about someone who had decided that my property rights were subordinate to her social ambitions. It was about a pattern of entitlement that had gone unchallenged for too long. As darkness fell, I looked out at my lawn, now bearing the marks of dozens of folding chairs and foot traffic. Karen had won today, but the war was far from over. I would need to respond, not with anger or pettiness, but with something that would make an unmistakable point. Something she could not dismiss or explain away, something memorable. The morning after the potluck, I called the non-emergency police line. The officer who answered sounded bored as I explained the situation. "So no damage to your property?" he asked after I finished. "No physical damage," I replied, "but they used my property without permission." "Sounds like a civil matter," he said, stifling a yawn. "You could try filing a trespassing complaint, but without prior written warning, it probably will not go anywhere. Maybe talk to your HOA." I thanked him and hung up, frustration mounting. Next, I tried approaching my neighbor, Michael, who had attended the potluck. I spotted him retrieving his morning newspaper and walked over. "That was quite an event yesterday," I began casually. Michael looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Yeah, Karen sure knows how to organize things. She never asked my permission to use my lawn," I said directly. "Did anyone question that?" "Look," Michael said, glancing around as if worried someone might overhear, "Karen runs the social committee, and she is on the HOA board. Nobody wants to get on her bad side, you know. Last guy who crossed her ended up with violation notices every week for 6 months." Other neighbors gave me similar responses throughout the day. They acknowledged my position, but were unwilling to stand with me against Karen. Some even suggested I should be flattered that my lawn was chosen for such a prestigious neighborhood event. By mid-afternoon, I spotted Karen walking her poodle past my house. I decided to confront her directly. I stepped outside, documents in hand. "Karen, we need to talk about yesterday," I called out. "I have the property records here showing that." "Oh my goodness," Karen interrupted loudly, her voice carrying down the street. "Are you still upset about our little gathering? Everyone had such a wonderful time. The neighborhood has been talking about what a success it was." "That is not the point. You used my private property without. The community needs spaces to come together," she declared, her voice rising dramatically. Two neighbors working in their yards looked over. "We are trying to build connections here, and you are making it about property lines and technicalities." "It is not a technicality. It is my lawn," I insisted. Karen's expression hardened. The HOA charter has provisions about maintaining neighborhood harmony. Making a fuss about a harmless community event could be seen as disruptive behavior. She let that threat hang in the air. "Besides, everyone saw you storm out yesterday. They already think you are unfriendly." I stood speechless as she smiled, tugged Precious's leash, and continued her walk. The implicit threat was clear. She would use her HOA position against me if I pursued this further. That evening, I sent an email to the HOA board detailing the incident and requesting clarification on property use policies. The automated response promised a reply within 5 business days. I also sent a direct message to the board president, but received no answer. Days passed. My lawn still showed signs of the potluck, flattened grass where tables had stood, a faint stain where someone had spilled punch. Every time I looked out my window, the evidence of the invasion renewed my determination to find a solution. The HOA finally responded with a vague email about community standards and neighborhood cohesion, suggesting I attend the next board meeting if I wished to discuss the matter further. No acknowledgement of the unauthorized use of my property, no promise of intervention. Standing in my kitchen, staring at my reflection in the window as the sun set over my violated lawn, I realized that traditional avenues of resolution had failed me. The authorities considered it too minor to address. The neighbors were too intimidated to support me. The HOA was clearly in Karen's pocket. If I wanted justice, I would need to create it myself, and it would need to be something Karen could not dismiss, ignore, or manipulate to her advantage. Something that would make a lasting impression not just on her, but on the entire neighborhood. 2 days after receiving the dismissive HOA email, I sat at my computer late into the night, researching local ordinances about property rights and trespassing laws. My eyes burned from staring at the screen for hours, and my search had yielded little practical help. The legal remedies available seemed either too extreme or too ineffective for my situation. I decided to take a break, mindlessly scrolling through local community pages. A post from a group called Willow County Community Board caught my attention. The header image showed a large pink pig with a flower crown. Curious, I clicked on the post. Happy Hooves Pig Rescue seeking event spaces for educational outreach program. Our rescue pigs need to meet the community. Looking for yard space, parks, or community centers willing to host our furry friends for a day of education and awareness raising. All proceeds go to supporting our rescue operations. Contact Melissa at the number below. I stared at the post, a slow smile spreading across my face. The notification had appeared in my feed randomly, but it felt like fate. Actual pigs to counter the metaphorical ones who had invaded my property. The poetic justice was too perfect to ignore. My research shifted focus immediately. I delved into Karen's social media presence, looking for any information that might help me understand exactly how this would affect her. What I found exceeded my expectations. Karen's Instagram was filled with meticulously staged photos of her home. Each image showed immaculate spaces, perfectly arranged furniture, and not a speck of dirt anywhere. Her backyard was a showcase of precision landscaping, with geometric flower beds and a lawn that appeared to have been trimmed with scissors rather than a mower. Her posts frequently criticized others' property maintenance. Noticed 3 dandelions on my walk today. Some people simply do not care about our neighborhood standards, read one post. Spotted lawn furniture left out in the rain. Property values suffer when people cannot be bothered with basic upkeep, declared another. This was a woman obsessed with appearances, particularly when it came to landscaping and cleanliness. The thought of muddy hooves on her precious lawn would be horrifying to her, and the fact that she had used my lawn specifically because of its pristine condition made the irony even more delicious. I picked up my phone and called the number from the rescue post. A cheerful voice answered on the 3rd ring. Happy Hooves Pig Rescue, this is Melissa speaking. How can I help you? Hi Melissa, my name is Name. I saw your post about needing event spaces, and I would like to offer my front yard for your educational program. Oh, that is wonderful, Melissa exclaimed. We have been having trouble finding suitable venues. Most public parks have restrictions on livestock, even for educational purposes. My property has plenty of space. It is a corner lot with mature trees for shade. The ground is level and well-maintained, I explained, feeling a genuine excitement building. This plan was perfect not just as revenge, but as an actual community service. That sounds ideal. We usually bring between 15 and 20 rescue pigs of various sizes. They are all very friendly and used to people. We set up educational stations about pig intelligence, their natural behaviors, and the problems with factory farming. People can interact with the pigs, learn about them, and make donations if they wish. We discussed logistics for nearly an hour. Unlike Karen, I would do everything properly. I would obtain permits, notify neighbors through official channels, and ensure all activities were fully compliant with local regulations. Melissa seemed slightly surprised by my attention to detail, but appreciated my thoroughness. I spent the following day researching every relevant ordinance and regulation. I contacted the city clerk about permits for educational events on private property. I reviewed the HOA bylaws, identifying the specific sections that allowed for educational and charitable activities. I even called the county health department to confirm that temporary presence of rescue animals complied with health codes. Each document I collected went into a binder. Each permission I secured added to my growing confidence. Karen had acted with entitled assumption. I would act with meticulous legitimacy. She had taken shortcuts. I would follow every rule to the letter. She had dismissed my ownership. I would exercise my property rights with perfect documentation. As I created formal, professional-looking invitations for the Happy Hooves educational event, I felt a sense of calm purpose. This was not just about getting back at Karen. It was about reclaiming my space, establishing clear boundaries, and doing so in a way that actually benefited a good cause. The fact that it would likely horrify Karen was simply a bonus. A significant, satisfying bonus. Community Pig Rescue Awareness Event, this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., read the professionally printed signs I placed strategically throughout the neighborhood. I had asked a graphic designer friend to create eye-catching posters featuring adorable pig images and colorful text explaining the educational nature of the event. The signs went up exactly 1 week after Karen's Potluck, positioned at key intersections and community bulletin boards. I had coordinated every detail with Melissa from Happy Hooves. We had scheduled the event for maximum visibility, securing all necessary permits weeks in advance. The township had approved my application for a temporary educational event, and the health department had signed off on the presence of the rescue animals. I even had insurance coverage specifically for the day, protecting both myself and Happy Hooves from any potential liability. 3 days before the event, I accidentally encountered Karen at the local grocery store. She was examining avocados with the same critical attention she applied to neighborhood lawns. I pushed my cart past her, then stopped as if just noticing her presence. "Oh, hello, Karen," I said pleasantly. "Have you seen the signs for the pig rescue event?" She looked up, her perfectly penciled eyebrows drawing together in confusion. "Pig rescue? What pig rescue?" "Happy Hooves Pig Rescue is doing an educational event at my house this Saturday," I explained, keeping my tone casual and enthusiastic. "They are bringing about 20 pigs for people to meet. It is going to be quite educational." "For the neighborhood children." 20 pigs, Karen repeated, her voice rising slightly. "On your lawn, the corner lot." "Yes, right where you had your potluck last week. The space works perfectly for community events, as you pointed out." I smiled innocently. "They are going to set up educational stations, and the pigs will be free to roam around the yard. Some of them are quite large. The biggest one is over 400 pounds, I believe." Karen's face had gone pale, the avocado forgotten in her hand. But that will destroy your lawn. They will dig everything up." "Oh, I am not worried about that," I said with a dismissive wave that mimicked her own gesture from the potluck. "It is all about community engagement. I thought you would appreciate that, given your commitment to neighborhood togetherness." I left her standing there, mouth slightly open, avocado clutched in her rigid fingers. By that evening, my phone was buzzing with notifications. Karen had called an emergency HOA meeting to discuss inappropriate events and property value concerns. Exactly as I had anticipated. The next morning, I received an official-looking email from the HOA board requesting my attendance at the meeting scheduled for that evening. I arrived early, my binder of documentation tucked under my arm. Karen was already there, surrounded by her usual supporters, speaking in urgent tones that quieted when I entered the community center meeting room. "Mr./MS, name," began the HOA president, a tired-looking man named Robert. "We understand you are planning to host an event involving livestock on your property this weekend." "That is correct," I replied calmly. "An educational program about pig rescue and welfare." "There are concerns about the appropriateness of such an event in our community," he continued, glancing at Karen. "Mrs. Mitchell has raised serious questions about property values, sanitation, and noise." "I have all the necessary documentation right here," I said, opening my binder. "Township permit approved 3 weeks ago, Health Department approval, event insurance policy, educational program outline, waste management plan." I placed each document on the table as I listed it. Karen leaned forward, her face flushed. "This is clearly a violation of our community standards. Livestock animals in a residential area will create unsanitary conditions and excessive noise." "Actually," I replied, "according to HOA bylaw section 7.3, educational and charitable events are specifically permitted on private property with proper notification, which I have provided. The township has confirmed that temporary presence of animals for educational purposes does not violate any zoning regulations." For the next hour, Karen attempted to find loopholes or technicalities to block my event. With each objection, I produced the relevant documentation showing complete compliance with all regulations. The other board members grew increasingly uncomfortable as the discussion continued, clearly recognizing that I had done my homework thoroughly. "Well," Robert finally said, "it appears that Mr./MS. name has met all legal and HOA requirements for this event. Unless there are other concerns, I believe we should adjourn." Karen stormed out, her heels clicking aggressively on the tile floor. Several neighbors who had attended the meeting approached me afterward, some with cautious support, others with curious questions about the pig rescue. To my surprise, many seemed genuinely interested in the educational aspect of the event. A few even offered to help with setup or bring refreshments. The day before the event, Melissa called to confirm final arrangements. "Everything is set," she said enthusiastically. "We will arrive around 8 a.m. to set up before the official 10 a.m. start time. We are bringing 18 pigs ranging from piglets to our largest rescue, Oscar. He is a real crowd pleaser, over 400 pounds and loves belly rubs. That night I stood on my porch looking out at my lawn, which I had deliberately left unmowed for the past week to provide softer ground for the pigs. Small stakes with colorful ribbons marked the areas where educational stations would be set up. A water station for the pigs stood ready near the largest oak tree. Everything was prepared. As I turned to go inside, I noticed movement across the street. Karen was standing at her window, watching my preparations with a look of horror on her face. Our eyes met briefly before she let her curtain fall back into place. The anticipation of tomorrow's event filled me with a calm satisfaction that helped me sleep more soundly than I had in weeks. Dawn broke clear and mild on Saturday morning, perfect weather for an outdoor event. I was already awake and on my second cup of coffee when I heard the distinctive rumble of a large vehicle approaching. Through my front window, I spotted a white trailer with Happy Hooves Pig Rescue painted on the seat. In cheerful blue letters, pulling into the space I had reserved with traffic cones. Melissa hopped out of the truck, followed by 4 volunteers in matching t-shirts. I went outside to greet them, the morning dew soaking the hem of my pants as I crossed the lawn. "Good morning, we are so excited to be here," Melissa said, shaking my hand warmly. From inside the trailer came a chorus of grunts and snorts, the rescue pigs sensing the upcoming adventure. "Let me introduce you to our team, and then we can start setting up before we introduce you to our porcine ambassadors." For the next 2 hours, we worked together setting up information booths, straw-filled rest areas for the pigs, and a small stage for scheduled talks. Neighbors began to drift by, some stopping to help, others watching with undisguised curiosity. Children pressed their faces against the still-closed trailer, trying to catch glimpses of the animals inside. By 9:30 a.m., a small crowd had gathered in anticipation of the official opening. Melissa checked the secure temporary fencing one last time, then nodded to her team. "Time to meet our stars." The trailer doors opened, and the pigs emerged one by one. First came the smaller piglets, pink and spotted black, trotting eagerly into the sunshine. Then the medium-sized pigs, some with remarkable patterns and colors I had never seen before. Finally, the largest pig, Oscar, descended the ramp with deliberate steps, his massive frame drawing gasps from the gathered crowd. Each animal was clean, but clearly eager to explore, their snouts immediately beginning to investigate the unfamiliar territory of my lawn. Children squealed with delight as the pigs roamed within the designated area, some lying down in sunny spots, while others began the natural rooting behavior that pigs are known for. The volunteers moved among them, offering educational facts and supervising interactions. The atmosphere was joyful and relaxed. At precisely 10 a.m., I spotted Karen marching up the sidewalk, a folder clutched in her hand. She had clearly made an effort with her appearance, dressed in an outfit that might have been appropriate for a corporate board meeting, but seemed absurdly formal for a Saturday morning community event. Her face was set in grim determination as she approached Melissa, who was greeting visitors at the entrance to the fenced area. "Excuse me," Karen said loudly, her voice carrying across the gathering. "I need to speak to whoever is in charge about this unauthorized event." Melissa looked confused. "I am one of the organizers. Is there a problem?" I moved quickly to join them. "Good morning, Karen. This is Melissa from Happy Hooves Pig Rescue. Melissa, this is my neighbor, Karen Mitchell." "This event violates several neighborhood regulations," Karen announced, opening her folder to reveal a printout of HOA bylaws with sections highlighted in neon yellow. "Livestock is explicitly prohibited in residential areas." "Actually," I said calmly, "as we established at the meeting, educational events are permitted, and I have all the necessary approvals." I gestured to the permits displayed prominently at the welcome table. "Those animals are destroying the lawn," Karen insisted, pointing to where Oscar had begun to root enthusiastically, creating a small depression in the soil. "This will affect property values in the entire neighborhood." As if on cue, Oscar rolled happily in the freshly disturbed earth, a look of porcine bliss on his face as mud formed under the water sprinkler we had set up for the pigs' comfort. Nearby children giggled at his obvious enjoyment. "It is my lawn," I reminded her, "and unlike certain events that have been held here, this one has proper permits and permission." Karen's face flushed as she recognized the reference to her potluck. Before she could respond, the HOA president, Robert, approached with his young daughter. "This is quite something," Robert said, nodding appreciatively. "My daughter has been counting the minutes until this event since she saw the signs. She wants to be a veterinarian." "We have a special presentation about animal care at 11, Melissa told the little girl. "And afterward, you can help give the pigs their lunch if you want." Robert smiled at his daughter's excited reaction, then turned to Karen. "I see you are here bright and early too, Karen. Good to see community involvement." Karen looked from Robert to me, then to the growing crowd of neighbors who were clearly enjoying the event. Her carefully constructed objections were crumbling in the face of actual community support. This is unprecedented," she stammered. "There will be complaints about the noise and the smell." As if to contradict her, a chorus of laughter rose from a group of seniors who were watching a volunteer demonstrate how pigs respond to different enrichment activities. The only smell in the air was the pleasant aroma of straw and the coffee being served at the refreshment table. Melissa stepped onto the small stage and tapped the microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to our Happy Hooves educational event. We are so grateful to our host for providing this wonderful space where we can introduce you to our rescue pigs and share information about these intelligent, sensitive animals." Applause rippled through the crowd. Karen stood frozen, her folder of objections hanging limply at her side as she watched Oscar, now thoroughly muddy, root enthusiastically in what had once been my pristine lawn. The very lawn she had selected for her potluck because of its perfect condition. "The pigs will rotate through different areas throughout the day," Melissa continued. "We encourage you to visit all our educational stations, and yes, the pigs love gentle scratches behind the ears." More children rushed toward the enclosure, parents following with cameras ready. Karen remained where she was, watching as my lawn was transformed into a muddy playground for 18 enthusiastic rescue pigs. The careful landscaping she had exploited for her social event was being systematically disturbed, and there was absolutely nothing she could do about it. Every objection she might raise had been preemptively addressed by my careful preparation and documentation. I stepped beside her. "The community seems to be really enjoying this educational opportunity," I observed quietly. "Bringing people together is important, do not you think?" She did not answer, but the look she gave me before turning on her heel and walking away said everything. She had understood the message perfectly. As the last trailer pulled away from my curb late Saturday afternoon, I surveyed what remained of my once perfect lawn. The ground was thoroughly churned in places, with shallow depressions where the pigs had enjoyed rooting and wallowing. Straw was scattered across the mudded expanse, and the grass that had survived was flattened in irregular patterns. In short, it was a mess, exactly as I had anticipated. Yet unlike Karen's unauthorized potluck, which had left me feeling violated and powerless, the aftermath of the pig rescue event filled me with a sense of satisfied accomplishment. The Happy Hooves volunteers had stayed to help with initial cleanup, removing their equipment and collecting the larger debris. Melissa had shaken my hand warmly before departing. "This was one of our most successful events ever," she had told me. "We received over $2,000 in donations, and 3 families signed up to sponsor individual pigs. Plus, the community engagement was incredible. Would you consider making this an annual event?" I had smiled at the thought of Karen's reaction to an annual pig invasion. "I would definitely consider it," I had replied. To my surprise, several neighbors lingered after the official end of the event, offering to help with additional cleanup. Michael, who had been too intimidated by Karen to support me earlier, approached with his 2 teenage sons. "That was actually really fun," he admitted. "The kids learned a lot, and those pigs were way cleaner than I expected. We would be happy to help you spread some soil to level out the yard if you want." Over the next hour, a small group of neighbors worked together, filling in the deeper holes and distributing straw more evenly to protect the remaining grass. The conversation flowed easily, with people sharing their favorite moments from the day. No one mentioned Karen directly, but there was an undercurrent of understanding in many of the comments. "It is nice to have events that everyone can enjoy," one woman remarked. "Not just the same people who always control everything." The following week brought unexpected developments. 3 different neighbors stopped by to thank me for hosting such an educational experience for their children. The local elementary school teacher sent an email asking if I could put her in touch with Melissa for a possible classroom visit from the smaller pigs. And most surprisingly, I received a handwritten note from Robert, the HOA president. "Thank you for bringing something unique and positive to our community," he wrote. "My daughter has not stopped talking about the pigs. Also, I wanted to let you know that the board has decided to revisit some of our community event planning procedures to ensure proper permissions are obtained for all future activities. Your careful attention to regulations has been noted and appreciated." 2 weeks after the event, I noticed the first sprouts of new grass emerging from the disturbed soil. I had scattered seed and applied a light fertilizer, but nature was doing most of the work. The lawn would recover, different but still beautiful. Karen had been notably absent from the neighborhood since the event. Her usual walks with Precious had taken alternative routes, carefully avoiding my corner lot. The neighborhood's social media pages, once dominated by her announcements and complaints, had become more diverse in content and contributors. Several people had shared photos from the pig rescue event, tagging Happy Hooves and commenting on what a wonderful community experience it had been. 1 month after the pigs had visited, I installed a small, tasteful sign at the edge of my property: "Private residence, events by permission only." It was a simple boundary marker, nothing aggressive or confrontational, but its message was clear to anyone who cared to notice.